I know I've been dwelling on this in the previous screencast, dwelling on this quite a bit. Maybe you're thinking, well, why is he talking about this? He has this bit of personality. Why is he talking about education achievement and plants? Guy's mad. But I think it's really, really important because I think we're talking generally here about heritability studies. And here I'm talking about education achievement, I'm talking about height, but also this could be the case for personality variables, because remember when I said that 30 to 50% of variation in personality traits is heritable, I said it can depend on the trait or the group in which you study it. So it could be that in certain groups personality traits are more heritable, and in other groups personality traits are less heritable depending upon the particular environment. So it's a complicated thing. Really try and get your head into this, and if you don't quite understand it, then have a look at the Ned Block paper, which puts it in a really nice and controversial paper about race and IQ, and tries to explain why this may go some ways towards causing problems with some of the research which suggests that there are racial differences in intelligence. So worthwhile remembering it, because it is something which is an important critical point when evaluating behavioural genetic studies. So just to summarise what I've said, it can be differences between intelligence within groups are genetic, but differences between groups, as we just saw with the plants there, or the story about the kids, could be entirely or close to entirely environmental. So just because within group differences are genetic doesn't mean between group differences are, and obviously conversely, just because between group differences are environmental doesn't mean that genes have no effect at all. So it kind of depends upon the study. It actually gets worse than this. Turkheimer and colleagues did a behavioural genetic study on identical twins and non-identical twins reared apart. And when you actually just looked at the kids as a big group, then you found that, you know, heritability of educational achievement was reasonable. You know, it was kind of 50%. Kind of heritable, which meant there's 50% environmental. But when you actually divided those kids up into the kids who came from poor backgrounds and the kids who came from well-off backgrounds, then what you found is that for poor kids the environment was extremely important in explaining the variation. In other words, why one kid was smarter than another kid, why one kid was doing better at school than another kid. But for kids from good backgrounds, the environment played practically no role at all in saying why one kid was doing well and the other kid was doing badly. So why might this be? Might be worth thinking about it. Why could it be that the environment plays no role in explaining the difference for well-off kids, but a very large role in explaining the variation between poor kids? Might pause it and have a think, and I'll tell you one possibility after. Okay, my suggestion is that at least one reason for this might be that for poor kids there's a lot of improvement that can be made in the environment. So kids who are living in disadvantaged backgrounds, if their parents, if one, take two kids in disadvantaged backgrounds, if one kid's parent spends an hour a night or even half an hour a night going through their schoolwork with them or encouraging them to do well, or if one kid, compared to the other family whose parents don't help their children at all, or if one kid, their parents buy them a couple of books and the other kid doesn't have any books, then you can see that an extra half hour tuition or an hour's tuition from the parents could make a dramatic effect in that kid's performance. Or an extra book might have a dramatic effect on children's performance at school. When we're talking about well-off kids, who we assume here hypothetically are from backgrounds in where their parents are investing in them, they've got all the books, they've got all the computer paraphernalia to help them learn, they might have personal and private tutors, they've got all the stuff basically, they go to good schools and all that kind of stuff, then a small increase in the environment, because the environments are so good anyway, is not going to have much effect. So if you imagine again two well-off kids, one's got a tutor a private tutor who spends an hour with them every night, and they've got these books and they've got the computer programs showing them how physics works and all that kind of stuff, and they go to a great school with a lot of the new software and teaching methods and so on, then a small increase in that environment, an extra half hour tuition, it's probably not going to make much difference because the environment's already really good. it's kind of the law of diminishing returns. The kind of idea is that the more you put into stuff, you put a little bit of investment in, it's good, but the more you put in, the less each unit increase in investment has. Another analogy might be to imagine a group of individuals, just like us going to a lecture room and get a bunch of people out and look at and get them all to take part in some kind of exercise and see how well they do. Then what's probably got the biggest difference between these people is going to be the environment. Some of these people will partake in exercise, they will go running, they will go to the gym. Some of them won't. And chances are that it's going to be the ones who go to the gym, the ones who do running, who are going to do well in that particular exercise-related test. They're going to do better than the people who do no exercise at all. In other words, what I'm saying is the environment is probably the biggest contributor to success when you've got a lot of variation among people. Some do exercise, some don't. On the other hand, if you were to do the same thing with a bunch of elite athletes, all of whom have personal trainers, they have nutritionists, they have sports psychologists, they have physiologists, they have dietitians. They're all on great diets, eating the right kind of stuff, doing the right kind of exercise, blah de blah, and a lot of training. Then you'll probably find that the big difference there is not, which accounts as variation in performance, is probably not going to be the environment, because the environment's great for all of them. It's going to be genes. So genes might start to matter more when the environment is perfect, and this might explain this difference. So again, worth pointing this out. So socioeconomic status and heritability, very important. And it's probably the case, as I just said, that the environment, the better the environment is, the more genes matter. The worse the environment is, the more variable the environment is, the more the environment matters. So small increases for kids who don't have a very good environment can have big effects. Small increases, the same amount of increase for kids who are in a great environment, probably has very little, if not no effect, and that can explain that. And we know that IQ increases over time, I think called the Flynn effect. So IQ increases by a certain number of points every 20 years, and it's almost certainly not due to the fact that our genes are getting better, because that would take a much longer period of time. It's almost certainly the case that the reason why IQ is increasing is due to improvements in nutrition, education, other kinds of opportunities. So the environment is getting better. But as the environment gets really, really good, then we should find that the IQ this increase in IQ gradually starts to slow down, and genetic effects start to explain more of the variation. So in the Western world, it could be that the biggest effect on on performance, education, intelligence, whatever, is genetics, whereas in an underprivileged country, it could be that the environment has a bigger effect. So we're going to return to evolution now, and think about what needs to be explained here. And two things I think need to be explained: why traits are partially heritable, in other words, under genetic influence, and why traits are not wholly heritable. Why do they seem to be under environmental influence? So why do we not have either everything's genetic or everything's environmental? Why do we have this kind of strange halfway house? And I'll be discussing that in the next screencast.